Hey everyone, this is Matthew with MTP Language Learning with another video about language learning. And remember, if you like the videos, please feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. I want to talk today about why I love language learning and why I suspect you love language learning as well. My personal philosophy about language learning is that there is no deeper way to communicate with another human being short of a family connection, short of a family relationship, other than communicating with that person in his or her own native language. And that is what language is about. We are taught, or it is conditioned in us to believe that language learning is about passing a test. Language learning is not about passing a test. It is not about a grade. It is not about an exam or any of that. Language learning is about one thing and one thing only, and that is communication with another human being or a group of human beings. And when you experience the glistening in someone's eyes, when you can communicate, even if it's a what you might consider a failed attempt, or if you feel like you butcher it, or if you feel like you make a ton of mistakes, when you can see the glimmer of thankfulness in another person's eyes that you attempted, or that even you were successful in communicating with them in their own native language, it is an exhilarating feeling. And it has always been intriguing to me. The notion of speaking other languages has always been intriguing to me. And for me, it goes back a long time in my life, but I never found successful methods until recently. I grew up in a military town, and we knew several people who spoke different languages, and it was always intriguing to me, but I never thought that it was possible. I never thought that it was attainable, and that is a major hurdle and a major obstacle that so many of us face. And once you can remove that hurdle and know that it is possible to learn another language at any age, then you can start to see major results. And I remember one day in the second grade, there was a guest substitute teacher brought in who was a Spanish teacher, and I remember it like it was yesterday. She taught us some various words. She taught us elefante. Obviously, that means elephant. And I remember it very clearly, but it never went anything. It never went beyond that, and my study never went deeper into the Spanish language until recently. Then my next experience with languages came in middle school when I began to study French. And I studied 1 year in middle school and 2 years in high school. But I eventually, as sadly is the case with so many students in the United States, or possibly around the world, but when we study languages, we eventually do it for the grade, we do it for the test, and then we move on. And I eventually became bored with that. And I enjoyed the stories. I enjoyed learning things about the context and the culture of the French language, but I wasn't learning the language itself. And I eventually got bored, and I moved on. And I was fortunate enough to attend a high school that had opportunities to study Latin. And I heard that the Latin courses, and this was an accurate analysis, but I heard that the Latin courses at my high school were 50% Latin language, and then 50% Roman history, and that appealed to me immensely, and so I signed up and thoroughly enjoyed it. I took 2 years of Latin at the high school level, and then I took another semester at the university level of the Latin language, and it provided a very strong foundation, obviously, for future study of Romance languages. Some would say that is a hindrance or a stumbling block, but it was actually, for me, it was a strong foundation for the study of Spanish later on, and I'll talk about that in another video, but also resuming my studies for French. And I also learned the hard way that I got a free course with German cassette tapes and a workbook from the library while I was in high school. And because I was enthusiastic, I was optimistic, I thought I was going to really hammer this out. And that lasted about one lesson, because life happens, you get busy, and you don't think it's possible, you don't think it's attainable, and so you give up. And I believe that I have a very similar experience to so many other people. You love the idea of languages, you love the thought of being able to communicate with others in their language or in their native language, but yet you just don't believe it's possible. Or you think that you missed the window of opportunity, that you should have learned it when you were 7 years old or something along those lines. All of the lies, honestly, that we have been taught or conditioned to believe because of our environment. None of it's accurate. And so many people have learned languages as adults, and it's possible for me, and it's possible for you. And in a very short capsule, that is why I believe that I have grown to be so enthusiastic and optimistic about language learning. And I have a number of colleagues who are Spanish speakers or speakers of other languages that I would love to be able to communicate with them in their native languages. And I have had the beneficial experience of being able to communicate with my Spanish speaking colleagues in their language. And I believe they appreciate it. They tell me they appreciate it. And it's exhilarating feelings for me. It's a feeling of accomplishment. It's a feeling that I am trying to relate to another fellow human being at the most primal level. The closest connection, other than being related to someone, the closest connection that two human beings can communicate with each other is in one or both of their native languages. And I think that if more people could catch on to this, we would see a lot more communication in the world. And communication, all things being equal, helps out in a lot of situations. And so that is why I feel so enthusiastic and optimistic about language learning. It is there have been studies done, and I'm not qualified to speak on it, but there have been studies done about the mental benefits, the emotional benefits, the cerebral benefits of language learning. I'll leave that to the professionals, but hey, if they're right, all the better, because I believe that language learning is beneficial in so many ways. Even if the medical benefits were not the case, I would still be as enthusiastic about language learning. But if it is, hey, that's great too. But I think that it is a worthwhile activity, and obviously if you're here watching this on YouTube, then you think it is too, or at least you're curious enough to try to find something out. And so in a very short capsule, that is why I am so passionate about language learning, and I hope that as I and others in this vibrant language learning community on YouTube put out more videos, I hope that I can be a help to you, an inspiration to you, and possibly point you in the right direction or give you some things that have worked for me to help you on your language learning journey. But I will say this: do not give up. And to quote Steve Kaufmann from LINC, which I am a part of, and I'll talk more about that later, I am a student at LINC, I subscribe to LINC. I will say there is no failure in language learning, and that is a quote from Mr. Steve Kaufmann. And I'll link to him in the description box as well. But there is no failure in language learning. It's always taking a step in the right direction. And so let me encourage you today to keep on trying, keep on working, don't give up, find a method that works for you, and I hope that I can show you some methods that may work for you as well. But for now, I'm going to sign off, and good luck on your language learning, and I hope to see you soon.